know some of you know what last Tuesday was, and these are what I got last Tuesday. Because last Tuesday was my birthday, and I loved my birthday. But one of the things I learned as I grew older and became a mother is that birthdays are not as important to the people who had them as to the people who gave birth to the people who had them. I don't remember my being born, but I can tell you everything about my daughter being born. And I learned that just as part of aging. But I also learned a lot of things from the women in my life. They taught me so many things. Some of them good examples and some of them bad examples. And the first one has to do with birthdays. Because my mother lost her first child at birth. She lost the baby when it was born. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks, having seizures and not knowing whether or not she was going to live. Her first question when she came out of that was, how soon can I get pregnant again? Not my question, but it was hers. And the doctor said, you've got to wait at least 6 months before you conceive. She waited 5, and she had me. Because it was just that important to her. And so she taught me that when things are important, we're willing to overcome our fears and to take risks. Now, I had never planned on having a child because it sounded like a pretty scary thing to me. And so I was a few years later than my mother when I got ready to have my daughter. And it turned out that once I was pregnant, all of the fears were mostly gone. And the only thing I cared about was keeping that child safe. And so when it came time for emergency surgery, because my daughter was in distress and I was at risk, and the doctor said, my gosh, your blood pressure's lower than it's ever been. All of these doctors visit, we were worrying about your blood pressure, and now as you're facing emergency surgery, you seem so calm. And I said, well, if I'm not ready now to turn it over to you and to trust in you and to worry only about letting this child live, when else would I be ready? And after this, my mother came to visit me and conquered another fear. She doesn't like to drive on highways. She doesn't like to drive in strange neighborhoods. And she came to visit me, and every day that she was there for that week, she drove me from the east side of Cleveland to Metro to visit my daughter in NICU. And now I have taught that to my daughter, and there is no child yet, and that's okay with me. But she is brave enough to do things that I haven't even dared. She likes to fly on little planes. She likes to ride roller coasters. She has a growing career, and she plays sports. All of these things, because they're important to her, and because we have taught her that if something is important to you, it's worth taking the risk. Another thing I learned from my family was about follow-through. I learned this from my grandmother, my mother, and her sister. My grandmother ironed clothes for other people. It was what she did for a living. All day long, summer, winter, no air conditioning, she ironed clothes for other people. And when she died, suddenly overnight, she still had laundry to do. And my mother and her sister, in the midst of planning a funeral, in the midst of losing their mother, finished her ironing. And I was so mad. Why would you do that? Send those people their own dirty, wet laundry home. Let them take care of it themselves. But she knew, my family knew, that that job had given my grandmother the ability to buy gifts for her grandchildren. It had supported her lifestyle. And that we followed through. And that we were proud of what we had done. Okay? They finished that laundry and handed it back. Wow. And I understand that today. Part of why I'm standing here is follow through. Part of why I go to Toastmasters every week is follow through. I'm not as good as my family was at that because I don't even iron my own clothes, much less somebody else's. And then there's the not so good things that my family taught me. We worry. I know none of you worry, but we worry. And I don't particularly like that. There was a time when I was visiting my family in Chicago, but I was staying out in the city. And I was supposed to call my mom about noon and make arrangements for dinner. Well, you know, you don't have to call about noon to make arrangements for dinner because that's a long time away. So I called about 3 to make arrangements for dinner. And she said, "Oh my God, I thought you were dead!" And I said, "You thought I was dead?" She said, "Yeah, you're in downtown Chicago, and I thought you were dead." And I said, "Okay, well, while you were thinking I was dead, what was my sister doing?" "She took a nap." And I said, "And what was my father doing?" "Oh, he mowed the lawn." And I said, "Didn't it seem strange to you that they were mowing the lawn or taking a nap while I was dead?" She said, "I tried to get them to worry, but they wouldn't." All of her life, she believed that worrying worked because nothing she worried about ever happened. And the things that she had not worried about, total surprises, total shocks, some of them really horrible things, they happened. The problem must have been that she forgot to worry about those things. And so today, I teach my daughter to worry less. Now, I believe in a Native American tradition that when we heal 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. Now, my mother and my women in my life taught me the values of overcoming fears and of following through, and I want to teach my daughter not to worry. And in doing that, I know that my own mother and grandmother and all the women in my life are somewhere now where they know that life really is on my side, and that it is good, and that there will always be surprises that we can't plan for. But we don't need to risk our life worrying. We can enjoy life, and we can enjoy the positive messages that we've learned from the women in our life. Mr. Toastmaster.
1 minute silence, please.
Okay.